Hey Rich Girls, Kirby here.
And I'm Alfred.
And today we're going to have a little bit of a different episode. Okay, so I have had 2 episodes now where we talked a little bit about the economic policy of the 2 U.S. presidential candidates. And during one of those episodes, I actually brought Alfred in and we talked about a couple different topics, and we scrapped all of that video because it just was not working. Nothing about you. It was technological difficulties on my part. So I figured we should just do an entire episode. We're going to hit a couple of those economic points. And do you want to introduce why I wanted to bring you in, what your qualifications are?
So aside from being your husband and not having much of a say.
Rude.
No. So we met back in college, Virginia Tech, go Hokies. So I got my bachelor's in economics, and then I went on to get my MBA. So I think you were hoping I would have a little bit more economics insight to provide.
Yeah, economics insight, but then also I feel like you used to follow politics more closely.
Yeah.
I've been trying to keep up with the news and everything just for like the podcast, obviously.
It's been getting hard.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, so the first part of this episode, we're going to stay on track with money, economic policy. But then the second part of the episode, we'll see if we leave it in or not. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that we have different political beliefs and just how we've been able to kind of navigate that. I don't really know if we have any tips necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe just talk about what it's like.
Yeah, because we're pretty like on different sides of the spectrum, I would say.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we were talking about in a previous episode was tariffs. And basically one of Trump's kind of campaign promises is that he would like to raise tariffs quite drastically from what it seems like. Basically a blanket 10 to 20% tariff on all incoming goods from any country, as well as a up to 60% tariff coming from China specifically. So for me, from a like non-economic standpoint, just from like basic money standpoint, in my head, I would think that any kind of like blanket tariff like that is going to pretty much immediately pass over to us as the consumers, as well as if you're, raising the tariffs and the prices go up for consumers, we're going to be consuming less of those imported goods, meaning that yes, like the U.S. is going to be, the government will be making some extra money from those tariffs, but like how much? Like, is that actually going to be like a drop in the bucket? Like, I would just like your input on any of that.
Yeah. So we'll talk kind of briefly about just like what tariffs are. Basically just kind of taxes imposed on goods produced in foreign countries and then sold into America. I think so before I say kind of like what economists think, to kind of broad picture, economics is a science. It's not the hardest science. It's not as much as like a physics or something like that. But it is a science, and so it is very value neutral. So
wait, what does that mean?
So economists will make judgments based on math and predictions and results, not based on moral determinations.
Gotcha.
And not based on necessarily political motivations.
Okay.
So when we talk about things from an economic point of view, we're strictly talking about how it's going to affect the economy, not whether those things are good or bad or strategy or stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
So I think most economists would agree that tariffs are disadvantageous. They are bad for the economy. They increase the price of goods.
Okay.
And like you were saying, I think there's a lot of research that says that consumers bear additional costs due to tariffs. They will vary based on the specifics of that tariff, whether or not those full taxes are actually passed on to consumers. For Trump, for example, I think they've done some analyses of the tariffs he imposed while in office. I think he found like roughly 80% of those costs were actually absorbed by foreign companies and not by the consumer, but that's still 20% of those tariffs supposedly finding their way into consumers' pockets.
Yeah, that's not as high as I was thinking, but that's still pretty high.
But then again, those were specific targeted tariffs for specific industries and specific countries, not these like blanket tariffs that we're hearing about now.
Right.
Which again is a big shift in kind of the campaign or the administration that we've seen, because again it was in Trump's last term, it did seem more politically motivated than economically motivated, more trying to get either pressure on like Russia, those type of tariffs, or with China or other manufacturing bases. It seemed more to try and get better political deals.
Gotcha.
Rather than thinking it's better for our economy.
Did that actually happen?
I mean, it's hard to say. The economy was doing well. I think we had a pretty good, I mean, we restructured a lot of our trade deals with foreign nations. I mean, like the USMCA between, Canada and Mexico and us, I think has been a benefit. But again, a lot of these things are kind of hard to tell.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the possibility, I think that was the verbiage, the possibility of completely eliminating federal taxes for Americans, and kind of alluding to the fact that it would be replaced with tariffs, which based on the math that we did in the last video just wasn't going to work out. But I just wanted to get, like, again, an economist point of view, like the trade-off, like how would that even possibly work?
So again, this is a newer thing, because again, during the last Trump administration there wasn't really talks of this.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about, because I really didn't follow closely along at all with anything on the last election, because I was just
Yeah.
You know me.
I mean, so it has been talked about like forever. Before we had like a federal income tax, we had tariffs and sales taxes.
Do you know
how we
when?
funded the government.
Do you know when federal income? Oh, wait, I'm gonna look it up because now I'm interested. Okay, so it's been around for over 100 years. It was the 16th Amendment passed on February 25th, 1913.
Yeah, it was. So it would have been, if I'm doing my math correctly, a result of World War I.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So again, so people have been talking about replacing income tax with tariffs or like a national sales tax, stuff like that.
Yeah.
These think tanks do their studies and stuff. I don't think it really makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, again, I would be okay with tariffs in a, again, strategic way to, whether it's, again, like sanctioning Russia or Iran, or like trying to cripple an economy that way, or if we're just talking about trying to negotiate with countries who we don't think are trading fairly.
Gotcha.
Who might be doing, dishonest things.
Right.
But as like a broader like plan for funding the economy, I don't think it makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay.
Especially, I think even when people talk about this, because like the price of goods will go up if we blanket tariff everything. And then I don't think the increase from not having your taxes withheld during your weekly or biweekly paycheck is going to offset that.
Right.
And so they have ideas of like prebates, where you would pre-file your income for the year and then get basically tax refunds for consumption purposes. One specific tariff that's being talked about right now that you'll understand why it might catch my interest. Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on John Deere goods if they move manufacturing from America to Mexico.
So hot take,
like,
hold on. Al, if you're listening, will that change your vote at all? 200% tariff?
Mm-hmm.
What would that mean for the prices? Would that potentially mean a 200% increase in John Deere products? That's insane.
That's potential.
Isn't that one of the top 500 companies too? Isn't that Fortune 500?
Yeah, but again, that is
Holy
strategic
cannoli.
if you move your manufacturing out of America to Mexico. Which is, again, like those type of tariffs, like if it discourages that, it might be beneficial. But again, the kind of blanket, we're going to tariff everything, I don't think will work.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, other countries have like a pretty high taxes on like similar goods like cars, and so I mean we see Europeans don't own cars nearly as much as Americans. So
Well, they also
affects
have better
markets.
transportation systems. Like,
That's
U.S.
true.
cities in general, I mean, other than the big cities, although even, like, I don't think you could pay me money to ride the
Yeah.
fucking New York subway at this point, but, like, it's not walkable. Like, here, you can't get anywhere walking.
Yeah. Another example, other than the John Deere one, so as you know, I'm a member of Fabletics.
Hopefully not anymore after
No,
September.
I did cancel it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. He says that a lot.
So, yeah, so there's a difference between pausing it and canceling it.
Yeah, I
So
know that.
pause
Do you
it
know that?
and not cancel it.
Yeah.
I did know that, but I just forget to keep doing it. But no, last order before canceling the membership.
Yeah.
I got a little notice on the receipt that there was like a 15% fee for tariffs from China. So
Did it say that it like passed it? And I'll put it up on the YouTube video.
Yeah, I took a screenshot. I sent it to you.
Yeah. Did it say did it pass along 15%, or is it just saying like, oh, just a heads up, like prices might be a little bit higher than you expected?
It said specifically as a result of tariffs imposed on China in 2019.
Which would have been Trump administration.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget exactly what it said, but it's a fee.
Gotcha. Little bit of a side tangent then as well, because obviously, so that happened in 2024. It was a note from 5 years ago. How long exactly does it take? And obviously the answer is going to differ based on policy, but if a president enacts some kind of economic policy, you're not necessarily going to see it like that year or even the next year. It might take a few years for the actual like after effects to kind of be seen to the consumers like us.
Yeah,
Can you talk on that a little bit?
I mean, so this is also, we've talked about this before, and partially why I say economics is kind of a soft science, because there's a big sociology effect or part of this, where people react and make decisions in light of their beliefs about how policies are going to play out.
Right, but I think that's more so like in the stock market. Like obviously, like watch my episode about, investing during an election year. It gets crazy just based on news, but it evens out. Like it'll be crazy for like a week or two, depending on the news. Obviously, with like the Ukraine deal, that lasted a lot longer. People were a lot more reactionary, but other than the stock market, I mean, does it really, like, do people's personal opinions really affect the economy?
So not necessarily people's personal opinion, but if you're running a business and you think that a tax policy or a tariff policy is going to cost you $10 billion over the next 10 years, if you're acting in one way, you might start making, changes to the way you're running your business now. You might allocate, manufacturing in different ways. And so we might be seeing effects from people's views on how policy is going to affect them down the line.
Gotcha.
And changing their planning now.
Even if that doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, so again, that's why a lot of these effects are kind of hard to predict.
Yeah.
Because again, we're playing with incentives.
Yeah.
When we're talking about changing the cost of goods and the cost of making goods in different ways. So the way you change those incentives doesn't guarantee people are going to react to those in the way you want.
I think the other hard thing about that, which I really hate in politics on both sides, is like the blame game where they just point fingers and they say because you did X, Y, and Z, that's why we're in this situation, when there's also like thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other underlying factors.
Yeah, everything is, there's a lot of inputs into just the economy, and then there's inputs as in like, whatever's happening with education right now is affecting the future of the job market. And so it's like all of these things play into each other,
Right. Okay, so we're gonna jump over to the U.S. deficit. I kind of avoid any talk or any information or any digging about the deficit because it gives me a lot of anxiety. I don't like, if we're like a little bit in debt, I don't even like looking at that. And that's like, small potatoes compared to the U.S. deficit. So I'm just going to spit some facts to you, and then if you have any thoughts, let me know. As of December 2023, the total federal U.S. debt is 33.1 trillion. Oh, and the U.S. federal fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th. So I guess they need a few months to actually like tally up all their spending from the year. And then they give that to us right before Christmas. Love that for us. As of September of this year, September 24th, the U.S. deficit for the fiscal year to date is 1.9 trillion. Mm-hmm. So that's from September or October 1st of last year. So that's almost a full year, almost $2 trillion.
Yeah, in added debt.
This is a 24% increase from the same period in the previous year when the deficit was only 1.52 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my question that ties into like the political parties. Sure, they are always promising that they're going to like tackle the deficit and they're going to do this and that. How can either party, which they are both currently claiming that taxes are either going to stay the same or be lowered for the majority of Americans, how can like all of the political candidates ever basically since 1913, how I understand they need to try and get votes. Mm-hmm. But how can they continue to say, like, we're going to keep taxes the same, we're going to lower taxes, we're going to give you guys so much more money, but we don't have money because we're in so much debt? Yes, you can still print money, but, like, that's not really going to help.
Yeah, I don't know how politicians can lie like that, but that's what they're doing. Like, we can increase taxes on... I do think it's possible to increase taxes on wealthier people and businesses in some small way that will still result in like increased tax revenue. That I think the common pushback is that increasing taxes will reduce the size of the economy overall. So even if we're collecting a higher percentage, we're collecting less money.
Gotcha.
I think it's possible that we can just be collecting more money. I think we can do that.
Okay. But at enough of a rate to offset the debt?
The only thing that we can do is lower spending. We have to spend less money.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Okay, so we're fucked.
Yeah, I mean, if we can continue to grow our economy strong, then we can have a manageable debt.
Okay, here's my question. I'm probably going to butcher this, but the average American has about $7,000 of credit card debt. The average American has like about $400 in emergency fund savings to like cover an emergency. So like in order to grow the economy, people have to like spend money on goods, correct? But we don't have money to spend on goods. We have borrowed money from like credit card companies. So when people are saying we're gonna like expand the economy, what do they mean? Do they mean just Americans are going to get into more debt?
No, we need more jobs. People need to be making more money.
Well, jobs are few and far between currently.
Yeah, that's
and why. People are not only not getting increases, they're getting decreases in pay. I don't have any of those figures, but that's been like a huge topic the past like couple of weeks is that people are not getting raises, they're not getting COLA, and like they're not getting the sign-up bonuses that they were, during COVID and right after COVID, and they're literally getting decreased like income through certain things that the employer are doing, whether that's through benefits or, no overtime, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why people, I think, do like tariffs, the idea of protectionism, of making it harder for foreign companies to compete with American companies. Yeah, it's like a job protecting measure.
Okay, here's my question. I understand that, like, in an ideal American world, like, these chairs would be made in America, this microphone would be made in America, my camera would be made in America. I don't think a single thing in this room that we are sitting in right now was made in America. If they were, I'm just spitballing here, they'd be astronomically more expensive, and I would not have been able to put on this podcast.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
I think in an ideal world, just Americans would have, or in an ideal Americans would just have good enough jobs to take care of themselves. It doesn't matter if it's manufacturing or what it is. And broadening the tax base is also like the best way to be generating more revenue. So the more people we have employed making money, the more taxes we're collecting as well.
Yeah.
And I think again from like not an economic argument, but like an emotional kind of argument that people make again in support of tariffs, are that like American companies can't compete with China because they use like slave labor.
Right, and that's that. I mean, we could do like a whole episode on
so
just.
It's like it's not fair to be punishing American companies for not being as competitive.
Right.
Because
no, that makes
more
sense.
Practices.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah.
So I mean, again, emotional arguments that make sense, but yeah, I don't think anyone's under the impression that the economy is at its most stable point right now.
Yeah. I don't think it's like doing terrible. I mean, that just might be a personal opinion, but like.
Yeah, I'm just saying like in terms of debt and deficit.
Oh my God! Yeah. Okay. Terrifying. Yeah.
Those things are bad. One thing you'll hear: America is the U.S. dollar is the global. They'll sell it the hegemon.
Whoa.
Yeah. So basically, international trade is based off U.S. dollars.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like the most widely used currency.
Yeah, I think it's like 60% of like all.
Yeah, and so foreign countries have a stake in the U.S. dollar, maintaining its stability. Mm-hmm. I think China is trying to take our place, but
okay, and let me just like jump in here real quick because I used to get questions about this all the time in wealth management. Specifically, we would get like older individuals, and I don't know if they were just like watching Fox News. Hopefully, Fox wasn't like propagating this, although they probably were. Literally, they'd be like looking at horrible news sites that like they weren't supposed to click on. Like they would just get like fed these like really bad
blogs.
Articles that like were not legitimate organizations. And these were very smart individuals that had like a lot of money, they had like a really good career behind them, and they would call us and they would be like besides themselves. I shit you not, like once every 2 weeks without fail somebody would call, different people, saying, oh my God, China's gonna take over, basically that the world reserve like currency was going to not be the American dollar, and so we'd have to like talk, and they would want to sell every single one of their stocks and buy gold.
Oh, God.
And so then we'd have to I literally had like a script just because in my head, I didn't have it written down or anything, but just in my head of like, okay, what are you gonna do? So you're gonna buy all this gold. What are you gonna do? You're gonna like chip it off when you go to the grocery store. Like, how are you gonna pay these people? What if somebody comes and steals your gold? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what if it loses its value? Like, just people getting very concerned about that. So I just want to let people know, like, that's not going to happen. And if it does happen, we will have a lot of runway. We will know plenty of time ahead. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. It might happen in 100 years. It's not happening tomorrow, so like don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I just had to put that in there.
Yeah, we are still the most influential, impactful economy.
Anything else you want to say about the deficit?
So I mean, kind of countering what we were saying with broadening the tax base.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess we're saying that in replace of cutting spending, but I mean, one thing cutting spending will look like is probably people losing jobs.
Oh, well, yeah, that doesn't really help.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like...
It's a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, in an ideal world, like, what are some actual ways that we could reduce and, like, get down the deficit?
Reduce, I mean, yeah, again, it'd be...
I mean, ideally get to zero, but whatever's, like, an actual again, realistic number.
Jobs programs or incentivizing people to, expand. I think Kamala Harris proposed increasing the small business tax credit, like starting a small business, getting a tax credit.
I don't remember that, but there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of government regulation gets in the way of businesses growing. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways we can be growing the economy and thereby reducing the deficit without, cutting spending. But I think...
Are you proposing child labor?
Child labor?
I'm kidding.
I think a way to reduce the cost of the government without necessarily reducing the services to much of a degree would be to transfer some of that responsibility from the federal government to the states and allowing states to administer a lot more how that money is spent. Yeah, I know you don't like the federalist kind of structure of dividing between state and federal government. But,
I mean, it's just working out so great with abortion. I can't imagine how great it would work out with everything else.
I mean, it's not really similar.
How is it not similar?
Because again, it would be like the way like food stamps are administered, or the way that
so then like certain states would just like get rid of food stamps and like leave people out on the streets.
That's possible.
I think some states, well, some people would argue like California has like a really bad homeless population, which we saw firsthand. What was it, San Francisco?
Yeah.
Terrifying.
It was
but like I would imagine some states would just be completely upended.
Completely upended?
Yeah. At least for at least for a little bit. Just based on certain demographics that they would.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think I don't know. I think most states would still have like a welfare type system.
Yeah, but then this is why I'm just drawing parallels between this and the abortion. They would have like one welfare building to cut down on spending in the middle of nowhere that people who don't have vehicles, that don't have money, have no way of actually getting to.
Possible. You can make up whatever bad scenario you want and say that's possible. So, sure.
All right, we do have to touch on inflation, but then we're revisiting this when we talk about
the differences. Bad things could happen.
They will happen, babe. Okay, inflation. I was under the impression, I know you paid more attention in economics class than I did, that some kind of inflation, a small inflation, like a 2% inflation, is what we should be aiming for. And that might just be in my head because that's what the Fed typically aims for. Can you explain to me how and why a 0% inflation could be a possibility and work?
Yeah, so inflation is generally caused by the Fed printing more money. It's the result, or the reason for inflation, I guess, would be just the devaluing of the American dollar. So the more money in supply, the less valuable each individual dollar is, and so that results in goods costing more money, or at least nominally. I think 2% inflation. Again, I haven't really heard that.
Well, it's like what the Fed usually shoots for.
I don't think it's something they're shooting for. I think it's like, let's keep it under this number because above this number is bad, and this number or below is manageable. Yeah. I think that's more of it.
Okay.
It might. I mean, like we're gonna be printing money to like just update currency and replace bills and stuff like that. So I think there's always gonna be some inflation. I mean, we're always gonna be again printing more. I think keeping it as low as possible is generally good.
Okay, on to the fun part. So we've been together for almost 10 years in October, so next month.
Yeah.
In like 3 weeks.
Crazy.
Yeah. Married for 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 this year.
Do you remember when I kicked you out of our house in college for like 3 days in 2016?
Oh, you did not. You just did not talk to me. So we slept in the same bed, but not a word was exchanged.
That actually makes me feel better. I really thought that I had like kicked you out.
No, just silent treatment.
I have a distinct memory of 4 of us. Me, you, my roommate and best friend Hannah, and her partner at the time. And me and Hannah were very pro Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. And I was at least very intoxicated. I'm pretty sure Hannah was as well. And then you and Hannah's partner were...
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was the lone one.
Yeah. At the time, correct me if I was wrong, very pro-Trump. And I think we were watching a debate, which was... I don't know why any of us thought that was going to be a good idea.
No, we were watching the election results.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's
good.
Why. It wasn't just a debate.
That wasn't good. And I was like so convinced. Well, I think pretty much everyone was convinced that it was not going to go the way that it did.
Like I said, I've predicted every Trump election wrong.
So what do you predict for this election?
I feel like Kamala's gonna win.
Oh, that's not good. What do you mean?
I know.
No,
I wish I didn't feel that way, but I do.
So in case anyone's confused, I typically vote democratically in
I'm
Alfred.
pretty conservative, yeah.
Have you ever voted for a Democrat?
No.
Rude. So usually we go to the polls and we cancel each other out.
Yeah.
I would say we mostly try to... You pretty much try to avoid all political talk whatsoever. I'll send you memes and I'll like get in your face when I think like I can handle it. And then usually I walk away very upset.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not gonna out our families, but one side of our family.
I think it's pretty obvious.
Okay, so I come from a very left-leaning family. You come from a very right-leaning family. And I would also argue that probably our families are more so like leaned outwards than we are. I think we're a little bit more moderate.
Yeah. I will just interrupt real quick.
Please.
This was not planned, the blue and red.
Wait, I always
Blue
get this mixed up.
Democrats, red Republicans.
You're technically wearing maroon and burnt orange, babe.
Still red.
Well, okay, I'll start off a little bit then. So, just to give a little story. So, earlier this year, I had to remove myself from a group chat. But let me preface this with, I think that was the best decision I could have possibly made. I made it very rashly, but like I was thinking about it today, like when thinking about points to make during this episode, and I think it was really helpful because really since then, I've had no notifications on my phone whatsoever about anything political. Because I get no notifications from email, social media. If I get a phone call that is not a contact in my phone, I do not get a notification. So the only notifications I get are phone calls from contacts and text messages. So I got a text message earlier in the year about a certain fucking Trump rally, and my blood started boiling, like my face was red, I could feel my cortisol rising, like I was just like, I cannot handle that this year. It's too earlier in the year. It's gonna get way worse like as we go on. So I removed myself, and it's been perfectly fine. No one has brought anything up. Like everyone has pretty much just like avoided it, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
So maybe remove yourself from group chats, and you know, I don't even think you had to talk to anyone about like not getting into it at family gatherings, because we've seen people a fair amount.
Yeah.
We've had other disputes, but not about politics. I think you're the more, pragmatic person?
Pragmatic, yeah.
I don't know what that word means.
Kind of like, thought through.
Yes, I'm the emotional one. I'll just say whatever comes to my head.
Yeah. So another one of these big things that we're split on, so I'm Catholic.
Okay, let's get into that for a second. When's the last time you attended a Catholic, what do you even call it?
A mass.
Okay, mass.
It's been a long time.
Was it Jess and Tom's wedding?
Probably. I listen to the Bible.
You listen to the Bible?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I have a little Catholic app. I listen to
what?
the Bible. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Exactly. Keep it to myself. But no,
Whereas I listen to Morbid and I make you listen.
Yeah, that's different. But no, one thing, so I'm not very preachy about it, or
no,
I don't bring it up that much.
Which
really.
I very much appreciate.
But like one thing that a lot of Christians will say is like to be the example of, you know, what it means to be a Christian, and to like and not just in terms of doing good little things, but of being happy and being exposing to the world that the faith that you have does bring you this inner peace and joy and this happiness, and to live in that and be an example of that. And so I think in politics you want to do that too. You want to represent your side as being good people with good intentions, and so try to be that.
Yeah.
And then act that way.
Yeah, the name calling and like the finger pointing, well, on both sides, but obviously one side seems to be a little more fucking in your face about it, in my humble opinion.
One side's got shot at twice.
Who?
So one side has been shot at twice. So.
Maybe he keeps running his mouth. I'm just saying. Okay, who other political candidate in history, side tangent, has a fucking like literal middle school bully nickname for any person who has ever even like slightly looked at him wrong.
Yeah.
He's like the little fat kid at the middle school playground that no one wants to play with, so he's just like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah. I'm not going to defend Donald Trump. I think he would be a better president than Kamala Harris.
Okay,
so
we don't need to get into that. We don't need to get into that.
I do find him funny.
Why? He's infuriating.
He is.
Oh my god.
It's
We're
good
way
time.
off topic.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I think we started
Tip number 1, hold hands. Don't strangle each other.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, like I was just trying to say, I think the way you handle yourself, the way you behave, is incredibly important to the way any interaction you're in is going to go. So, try to be, if you're talking to someone and you think your policies or your beliefs are so much better, then you should be acting like a better person.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
Again, comment on the other end is, if this is where it's someone you care and love about, then treat them as if they're someone you care and love about.
Yeah.
Be nice to them. Give them the benefit of the doubt, which is something
That's
I
a
ask
big
for all
one.
the time.
I feel like I've gotten a lot better about that.
Yeah. It's very easy to say, like, you believe that because you're a bad person.
Yeah.
But, like, if you come at it from the point of this person is a good person, then you have to just confront that maybe you don't understand the way they see things.
Yeah. And maybe verbalizing that, because I feel like I'm not as good as that, where I get very worked up and it's like, obviously I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're like the best person ever. But when I say things that don't align with that, in the back of my head, I'm like, obviously you're a good person, but I'm not actually verbalizing that. So then you sometimes take that as,
Like,
oh, she thinks I'm a
yeah.
bad person, which I don't think, but because I'm not verbalizing that, you don't know that.
Like, little anecdote.
Oh no.
Let's go all the way back to the 2016.
Do we have to?
No, so nothing you did.
Oh, no.
But a family member, we'll say, asked, like, when you said I was struggling with Trump, like, is he a little racist or something like that?
Okay, to be fair, that's a fair question.
Again, I don't think it is.
Well, I don't think it was fair of that person because they knew you.
Feel
And
free
say
to
about
scrap
that one.
part.
I'm probably scrapping a lot of this. I don't want to get shunned from both family reunions. How about you give some people some tips, including me? Can you give me some tips how to, like, de-escalate a situation if your partner's getting very worked up or a family member's getting very worked up, instead of, like, rising up to that, because that's just going to keep escalating the situation? Like, what are some steps you can take to, like, just internally, and then hopefully because you do that internally, that will kind of bleed over to the...
So, again, coming at it with that mind frame of, I care about you and I want this relationship to stay intact, and I want to treat you well, and I want, to save whatever, like, have that in the back of your mind, that you're not trying to fight, you're trying to talk to someone.
Yeah.
I would say slow the conversation down. I think when you get faster paced, I think emotions tend to rise as well.
Yeah.
And I think kind of slowing things down and making sure that both people are, like, really thinking about what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because, again, when you get emotional, you start saying things in crueler ways than you would if you were more level-headed. So I think trying to keep people thinking kind of as rationally as possible.
Yeah.
I'd say definitely keep it clean. I would say don't start throwing names and slinging mud.
Don't curse.
I try not to curse, but you do you.
No, I think especially when you get, like, really wrapped up in those conversations, it can be easy to, like, feel a lot of that, like a lot of the emotion, at least personally, when I'm, like, talking about a lot of, like, political things, I get emotional, right? I'll, like, raise my voice and stuff. That's not necessarily directed at whoever I'm talking to, but it can come across as that. So if I'm getting myself worked up, and then, if I'm not thinking as rationally, I'm going to start cursing, and so...
Yeah. Well, I think, so that was, like, some kind of, like, general, like conflict management
Yeah.
advice, but like specifically when you're talking to people about politics, another good thing would be to try to focus on the issue at hand
Yeah.
and try to act like you're a policy analyst rather than two people just talking about stuff.
That sounds
And,
boring.
yeah, exactly. It kind of deflates things. Try to take people out of it.
Yeah.
Try to.
That's hard though.
Yeah, I know. Try to say like again, if we're going to talk about issues instead of saying like Kamala's plan to do this.
Yeah.
Or, like, try to just say like how would this affect our this sector, whether it's the economy or if it's crime or war or whatever.
It's Kamala, by the way.
It's Kamala?
Kamala.
What did I say?
Kamala.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Chaperone just made the same mistake. I had nothing of importance to add.
Okay.
I'm not good at this.
The conflict resolution,
in general,
avoiding fighting.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've gotten better at that. I've gotten better at just removing myself from the situation. But again, I don't think that's necessarily like the best way to go about it either.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better than just, butting heads with people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not talking to resolve anything or understand the other person's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, again, general conflict resolution or kind of like interpersonal skill rule is like learn to pick your battles and like learn which people you can talk to about which things. So I mean.
Yeah, but again, that's again just kind of like skirting around the conversation, which I like is good in certain circumstances for sure. But I think like in general, I feel like in general like families and like especially like married couples like or friend group tend to think the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not necessarily going to have a lot of opposing views in situations where you can like actually have productive conversation. Because probably like the most likely place where you're going to have different political views is in the workplace, and obviously for most of us, unless you're like actually in politics or like news, you're really not. You're gonna avoid that at all costs, right?
Yeah.
Because then at the end of the day, you're coming back home to a family that probably thinks the same as you, and to hanging out on the weekend with a friend group that probably thinks similarly to you.
Yeah.
And you're watching content that's probably a similar viewpoint to your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we merge it? Like, how do we get people to like come together a little bit more?
Talk more?
Yeah, kumbaya, hold hands.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's tough. There's people have been talking about it for a long time, like a lack of kind of like community where like things are happening more online and spread out. I mean, that's definitely an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know how to solve that. I feel like people would assume it would be a big deal for us to be like on opposite sides of the aisle.
I think it is a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah. How big of a deal do you think it's been for us, and how big of a deal do you think it is for like normal, average person?
Ooh.
It's like we don't discuss politics too much, and
No.
I don't think underlying values are too different.
No. But I'd also say we, for the most part, like don't argue a ton.
Yeah.
Again, mostly because of you, because you're better than I am. I think where people get into not trouble, but I think it probably comes up more like if there's already like underlying problems in the relationship, romantic or otherwise, familial as well. Obviously if tensions are higher and there's an election going on and you're on different sides of the aisle, like that's not going to be a good recipe for anything.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty good, and I think we've gotten better about like not
blowing up on each other.
Yeah. Again, more so me. I have grown a lot. Alfred's been great the whole time.
What have you been doing to find this inner peace?
I had children, and so I just don't have any energy. Have kids, folks. No, I'm kidding. I don't know, I think just, yeah, like getting older, we started dating when we were 20.
Yeah.
We were babies.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
young.
tiny babies. I had so much energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lifetime ago. It's a third of our lives. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a long time.
I mean, you are older than me, so my old man. No, I would say like just remembering that just because somebody votes a certain way does not mean that they have the same viewpoints as the person that they are voting for, and they're not endorsing 100% of the things that that person is endorsing. And then again, just like verbalizing your thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always comes back to just like good communication.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten a lot better at communication.
Yeah.
For sure. On both sides.
Yeah, which I mean,
But we've
10
also
years will do that.
well, no, I mean not necessarily. I
Yeah.
feel like it can go the other way too, right?
Yeah, that is true.
And it's something we always have to work on. But I remember like when we first started dating, you literally would not fucking text me at all. And so I had to sit you down and be like, bitch, you have to text me. I don't care if you know you're gonna see me in an hour.
Yeah.
And then now you text me. Might be 3 words, but it's a text, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So communicating and then following through on that communication. It can't just be lip service.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we've talked for entirely long enough.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's no technical difficulties with this one. As much as I love talking to you, I don't really want to go over the same thing for a third time.
Mm-hmm. I don't blame you.
Any final parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think the second half of the conversation was a little more important. Maybe the dealing with people in your life who you disagree with. And
Yeah.
I
don't know if we actually gave any like
think
practical advice.
I don't know if we did, but I think to summarize it would be like, try to treat people kindly and
Yeah.
Be the type of person you say you are and you want to be.
Yeah. All right, this has been entirely too long. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.